We continue now with music, which we were talking about before, but this time we will illustrate some of it. Let's begin with the idea of an octave when we see on the piano keyboard. Now, there's the piano keyboard right there. And you can see the octave. Notice the C and the C on both sides. And the mathematical equivalent is underneath that, so you can see that. And then all this down here is simply to show you the mathematics of it, but that's not necessary. But at least that shows you what an octave is on the keyboard. You can see there are only so many notes, as we said before, for the octave. Now, also, what is very interesting is that when we come to the notes themselves, we told you before that the notes are divided into certain kinds of notes, like here's a picture of them. How long are the notes? How long do they last? It depends on how they look. There's an illustration of how they look. And here's another illustration on the next page of how they look. There's a whole note. There's a half note. You see that? Half note, quarter note, eighth note. Notice the flag, as we said before. And then what we have here is the equivalence. If you take a whole note, it's equivalent to two half notes. If you take a whole note, it's equivalent to four quarter notes. If you take a whole note, it's equivalent to eighth notes. So anyway, you go through all of that. This is about how long notes are and what they look like. Now also, the lines, we said they are written on lines. I want you to see what lines look like, because this is where notes show up on a piece of paper for every musician. Notice the lines? Those are the lines, and the notes show up on the lines, and that tells you what the name of the note is and where you play it on your instrument. So those are called lines, and those are very, very important because that's where your melody comes in. Now here is an idea of what melody looks like when it's on the lines, you see? And actually there are two lines when you have a staff. This is called a staff, and there are two lines. Why? Because these are the higher notes and these are the lower notes. So you need those in order to be able to play the language of music. So that's what that is. And then how fast or slow the notes go are done in things called measures. There's the staff. Those are the lines, but these are the measures. This shows you how many notes are in there and how fast or slow they go. So that's another part to illustrate what we were just talking about before. So if we put these together, they will show you also some very interesting things about that. For example, this one I have the measures, 1, 2, 3, 4 beats in each measure, but you will see at the same time the different kinds of notes that can take up that space. You see this line right here? Look at that. Notice the 1, 2, 3, 4 underneath, and then you see what kind of notes are used, but they all take up the same amount of measures, the same amount of beats, but there are different kind of notes in there because some go faster and some go slower than others. And then there's all the mathematics about this, which we will talk about later. Another thing important is on the lines, you have to know a focus point for notes. How do you know which note is on a line and what it's called, both in the upper part and the lower part? So in a moment, we'll take a look at that, but at least this gives you some illustrations of what I've been talking about. So it's not auditory now, this is actually visible. We talked about the auditory before, but now this is the visible. We will show you some more illustrations momentarily.